The smoke of war still hung over the valley when he stepped through the broken archway. His boots crunched over shattered glass and glowing alien debris. The ruins were not old. The battle had ended just hours ago. The human soldier scanned the area, pulse rifle ready, unsure what he would find. Then movement caught his eye. A figure kneeling among the rubble, her head bowed low, unmoving. She wasn't human. Her skin shimmered with emerald scales and glowing markings. Her long silver hair was stained with ash and her shoulders trembled slightly. She was kneeling, not in pain, but in silence. She made no sound. Her hands were pressed to the floor, not for support. It was a posture of something else. Submission? Prayer? He didn't know. All he knew was she hadn't fled like the others. She stayed. He lowered his rifle slowly and stepped closer. "You don't have to bow," he said gently. "I'm not your conqueror." His voice echoed in the ruined courtyard. She didn't answer. Not at first. Then she looked up, and he froze. Her eyes were large and glowing, a deep shade of violet. She looked directly into him, as if measuring his soul. Finally, she spoke. "You do not understand," she said in a soft, accented voice. "In my culture, this is not defeat. This is trust." Her words were like a whisper that cut through the tension like lightning. To kneel is to offer one's life and loyalty. To kneel before an enemy means we believe they have no need to kill us. He blinked, unsure how to respond. "But I'm not your leader," he said. "I didn't ask for this." She rose slightly, still on her knees, but now straight-backed. "And yet you spared me. That makes you greater than a commander. That makes you worth following." Her tone was not sarcastic. It was solemn, steady, and full of something he couldn't quite name. More footsteps echoed behind them. His squad arrived, weapons raised, tense and ready to fire. But when they saw the alien woman kneeling before their comrade, unmoving and calm, they hesitated. "Target secured?" one of them asked, confused. The human soldier didn't answer immediately. He kept his eyes on her, watching the way she never flinched, even surrounded. "She's not a threat," he finally said. "She surrendered." "That's not surrender," the alien woman corrected softly. "It is sacred. I have chosen." The squad looked among themselves. Sacred? Chosen? None of it made sense. But she wasn't armed. No weapons, no armor. Nothing but ancient-looking robes and ceremonial bands around her wrists. Symbols from a culture most of them barely understood. Later, as they moved her to the extraction point, the squad kept their distance. Only he walked beside her. She didn't resist. She didn't speak again. But every now and then, she looked at him. Not with fear, with calm, with something else. As if waiting for him to speak again. As if her fate was no longer hers but his. That night, while the others laughed and played cards inside the makeshift barracks, he stepped out into the quiet air. She was there, sitting beneath a tree, her hands folded. When she saw him, she nodded. Not a bow, just a nod. "You still don't understand," she said, "but you will." He didn't know what she meant, but the war had changed many things, and she was one of them. The camp wasn't meant to hold prisoners, especially not one like her. There were no bars, no locked doors. She stayed because she chose to. Some soldiers whispered about her, calling her a spy or a trap. Others just stared, unsure how to treat a kneeling alien who offered no resistance but gave everyone chills. With her calm silence, only one person spoke to her regularly. Him. He brought her food, though she rarely ate. He asked questions, though she rarely answered, but she always listened. And when she did speak, her words seemed older than she looked. "You think war ends with silence," she said one evening as he handed her a water flask. "But in my world, silence means new oaths begin." He didn't know how to answer that. He just sat beside her, letting the fire crackle between them. "Why me?" he finally asked. Why bow to me? She looked at him, eyes glowing in the firelight. Because you stopped when you could have ended me. Mercy is not weakness. Where I come from, it is the highest form of power. He tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. That's not how it works on Earth. Then Earth is broken, she said simply. Her voice held no anger, no challenge, just a cold fact. He couldn't argue with that. The next morning, the commander arrived. Orders had changed. She was to be transported off-world for interrogation. A shuttle was coming. She's not a prisoner, the human soldier protested. She hasn't done anything. The commander raised an eyebrow. She fought against us, didn't she, or are you too attached now to be objective? He didn't answer. The truth was clear. He was attached. Not romantically, not yet. But something about her, her presence, her calm, felt larger than just a captured enemy. She wasn't here for herself. She had chosen to stay, to kneel, to speak in riddles only he seemed to care enough to decode. As the shuttle landed, the wind kicked up dust around them. She stood on her own, walking calmly toward the ramp, flanked by 2 armed guards. But before stepping inside, she turned. She looked directly at him. Your people fear what they do not understand, she said. But you did not fear me. That is why I offered the bow. I didn't understand it, he replied. Still don't. You will? And with that, she disappeared into the shuttle. Hours passed, but he couldn't focus. Her words echoed in his head. He found himself looking through ancient reports about her people, their customs, the symbolism of posture and gestures. And then he saw it. In her culture, kneeling wasn't submission to power. It was offering guidance to the one believed capable of shaping fate. She had not bowed as a prisoner. She had bowed as a mentor offering herself to a student. The realization shook him. The next day, he requested transfer orders, not to a new battlefield, to the off-world station where she was being held. When questioned, he gave a simple answer. I have to understand what she saw in me. And somewhere beyond the stars, she opened her eyes. In a quiet chamber, sensing that her path was about to continue, the transport ship landed with a soft hum on the orbiting station. Inside, soldiers moved quickly, but he walked slowly, his thoughts racing. He hadn't told anyone the real reason for his transfer. Some thought it was duty. Others believed it was curiosity. Only he knew it was something deeper. He needed answers. And she was the only one who had them. She was held in a clean chamber, not a cell. No locks, just walls of glass and a single guard outside. She sat cross-legged in the middle of the room, eyes closed, as if meditating. When he entered, her eyes opened immediately. She didn't look surprised. You followed, she said. You were waiting for me to, he replied. She stood, her movements graceful and quiet. I told you. You do not understand now, but you will. He stepped closer, stopping just outside the transparent wall. Then explain it. Why me? Why offer something so sacred to someone you barely know? Her head tilted. Because I recognized what your own people cannot see. He was silent for a moment. You said kneeling was sacred, a guide offering herself to someone worthy. But why offer yourself to a soldier? I've done things that don't deserve respect. She moved closer, her glowing eyes focused on him. And yet when you saw someone unarmed and kneeling, you lowered your weapon. That was not instinct. That was choice. Her voice was calm, but her words pierced deep. In my world, leaders are not chosen by strength, they are chosen by clarity. You see more than you accept. That is why I bowed. His hands curled into fists. But I'm not a leader. I'm not special. You are becoming, she said softly. Becoming is more important than being. He left that day with more questions than answers. In the following days, he returned again and again. They spoke, sometimes for hours. She told him stories from her culture, legends of those who earned devotion through action, not titles. Her people believed in a bond that formed between warriors who chose peace over blood. And slowly, her story unfolded. She had not come to the war by choice. She was sent as a voice for her people, a bridge between the two species. But when the war escalated, she was cut off from her command, surrounded by violence and fire. That day in the ruins, she thought she would die. But when he paused, when he lowered his rifle, he became something more. "You ended my war with a choice," she said. "And I chose to follow the one who ended it." One night he asked the question that had burned in his mind since the beginning. "What would have happened if I told you to rise? If I never accepted your bow?" Her answer came without hesitation. "I would still follow, because the gesture was not for your pride, it was for your path." Her presence had changed everything, not just for him. Others on the station began to notice. She spoke with calm, gave insights into her people's thinking, helped resolve tension between humans and alien prisoners. Her voice carried peace. And the soldiers began to listen. But not everyone was pleased. Some higher officers didn't trust her influence. Whispers grew louder, and soon an order came. She was to be relocated to a secure facility, alone. When he read the orders, something inside him snapped. For the first time, he saw the full weight of her bow. It wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a warning. And now the real test was beginning. The station halls were quiet, but his boots echoed with purpose. He had read the transfer order 3 times. Each time it felt heavier. They were sending her away, locking her deep in a cold underground chamber meant for dangerous assets. No trial, no explanation. Just fear disguised as protocol. He reached her chamber just before the guards arrived. She was already standing as if she knew. Her eyes met his, calm and unshaken. "So this is how they repay peace," he muttered. She stepped forward, placing a hand gently on the glass. "They do not understand yet. That is not their fault. They're scared of what they don't control," he said. "And you scare them because you chose me." Her head tilted slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. "And you? Are you afraid now?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for the control panel. "I'm not letting them take you." The door hissed open. Alarms didn't sound. No alerts. Just silence and the soft whir of power unlocking. She stepped out slowly, as if expecting resistance. "Where will we go?" she asked. "Not far," he said. "Just long enough to make them listen." But before they could leave the station, the guards arrived. 4 of them, armed, nervous. "Step back," one barked. "She's coming with us." The human soldier stood between them and her. "She's not a threat." "That's not your call anymore," the lead guard snapped. "You're interfering with direct command." The tension thickened. Then she spoke, her voice like wind through still air. "Let me speak." The guards hesitated. She stepped forward, hands raised. "You fear what I represent, but fear is not safety. Let me show you what your orders do not teach." She knelt. Right there, in front of the guards, she bowed her head. One of them lowered his weapon. "Why is she doing that?" he whispered. The human stepped beside her, looking at the others. "Because in her culture, this isn't surrender, it's trust. And if we punish that, we become the monsters we think we're fighting." They didn't arrest her, not that night. News of what happened spread across the station. Some mocked it. Others stayed quiet. But a few started asking questions. Why would a warrior from an alien species kneel before a human soldier? Why would she offer peace in the middle of war? He was called in by higher command 2 days later. "You've complicated things," the officer growled. "You've made her a symbol." "No," the human replied. "She did that herself. I just listened." The officer leaned forward. "Symbols invite rebellion. You want to protect her? Then keep her quiet. No more public appearances. No more contact." Back in his quarters, he stared out the window, lost in thought. She entered quietly, unguarded. "They are afraid of change," she said. "But change comes either way." He looked at her, tired but focused. Then we need to make them see why your bow matters. She stepped closer. It never mattered because I gave it. It matters because you didn't step on it. He understood now. It was never about control. Never about submission. Her kneeling was an invitation, and he had answered it without realizing. Now, they would face the consequences together. The council chamber aboard the orbital station was cold and sharp, all metal edges and artificial lights. It was built for command, not compassion. The human soldier stood alone before the panel of officers. Screens behind them displayed footage of the kneeling alien woman, frozen at the exact moment she lowered her head before him. A symbol now, one too powerful to ignore. This isn't about loyalty, one officer said. It's about control. She's not asking for control, the soldier replied. She's offering guidance. Another officer leaned forward. Do you know how many species we've fought? None of them bowed, not once. And now this one does. And to you? He didn't flinch. Maybe that's why it matters. They dismissed him without an answer. Back in the living quarters, she was waiting. She wore the same ceremonial bands, her posture as calm as ever. They don't believe you, she said. He nodded. They think your bow was a trick. She tilted, her head slightly. A bow cannot lie, but those who fear it can. That night, word reached them from the outer colonies. A ceasefire was forming. Other alien factions, those once aligned with her people, had heard of the kneeling. The message had traveled faster than any official broadcast, and now they wanted to talk, not fight. The council was furious. You've turned her into a signal, one general said. She wasn't supposed to be anything more than a detained alien. But soldiers on other ships had seen the footage too. Some began asking for guidance, some began kneeling back. And something strange started happening. Silence spread across battlefields, small temporary truces, no commands, just pauses. Human and alien fighters stopping, looking, waiting. All because of one moment, one gesture, misunderstood by some, honored by others. The council had a choice. Ignore it and risk rebellion, or use it. They called the soldier and the alien woman to the central hall. What do you want? The HFY, lead officer asked. His voice was tense, his pride wounded. She stepped forward before the human could speak. I want nothing. I offered peace. You can accept it or waste it. Her tone was respectful but unshaken. The officer scoffed. And if we reject it? The human stepped beside her. Then you'll lose more than a war. You'll lose the meaning behind winning one. The room fell silent. That night, the council agreed to test her influence. One neutral zone, one mission, a trial of peace. If she could reach others with her ways, she'd be allowed to remain free. If not, she'd be returned to isolation. She accepted. The human volunteered to go with her. Not as your protector, he said, but as someone still learning. She nodded. Then you walk the right path. Their shuttle launched 2 days later. Destination: a fractured world where both human and alien outposts had been stuck in a cold standoff for months. No shots, no progress. Just fear holding the line. As they descended, the atmosphere trembled, with uncertainty, and somewhere below hundreds waited, angry, broken, unsure of what peace even looked like. But she would show them, and he would walk beside her. The shuttle landed in a wasteland of broken stone and abandoned bunkers. The world had once been green, but now it was dry and cracked, its air filled with heat and silence. The two factions, human outposts to the west, alien camps to the east, had not spoken in months. There were no gunshots now, only tension thick, enough to choke the air. She stepped down from the shuttle first. Her presence alone caused movement in the distance. Alien scouts peeked from behind burned structures. Human soldiers watched through scopes. No one fired. No one moved closer. She walked forward slowly, her head held high, Behind her, the human soldier kept his pace steady. His hands were open. His weapon remained on his back. They reached the center of the no-man's land. There, standing still, was a human officer with a scarred face and a bitter expression. Across from him stood an alien commander, tall and armored, eyes glowing with suspicion. Neither had spoken in weeks. Neither had tried. Until now. She bowed, but not to one side. She turned slowly and bowed before both. The human officer looked confused. The alien commander blinked. "What is this?" the alien growled. "A trick?" The human officer narrowed his eyes. "Is this mockery?" She lifted her head slowly. "No. This is trust. This is the moment where both of you must choose." The human soldier beside her added, "She bows not because she's weaker. She bows because she believes both sides are strong enough to stop." The alien commander stepped forward, armored boots loud against the hard ground. "You want peace, after bloodshed?" She nodded. "I offer the same to you that I offered to him. Understanding." "And if we refuse?" the alien asked. She knelt again. "I kneel knowing some will spit on it, but some will not. And one is enough to start." It was quiet. The human officer shook his head. "We've lost too many." "Then don't lose more," the human soldier said firmly. "Just listen. That's all this is. The war can resume at any time, but so can something else." There were no signed papers that day, no grand handshakes, but both commanders lowered their weapons. And that was enough. Over the next few days she visited both sides unguarded. She spoke to alien elders and human captains telling the story of her culture, how they bowed not in defeat, but in offering, how guidance began with listening. Her voice calmed soldiers who had lived with hate for too long. Her presence reminded them what could be rebuilt. The human soldier stood by her side, translating when needed, protecting her only when truly required. But most of all, he was learning. He watched how she turned silence into connection. He saw how her strength was quiet, but unshakable. He began to understand why her people had chosen her, and why she had chosen him. One evening, as the sun faded behind scorched hills, they sat by a broken wall. "You made them stop," he said. "I didn't think it was possible." She looked at him gently. "I didn't make them stop. I reminded them that they could." He was quiet for a long time, then he asked, "Do you regret bowing to me?" She smiled. "Not once. Because when I did, you didn't step over me. You stood beside me. But peace is never easy. And far above them, in the shadows of command, others were watching. Not everyone wanted this fragile silence to grow. Some wanted war back, and they were ready to break it. The night was too quiet. She felt it first. Something off in the wind, in the way the insects fell silent, in how the stars seemed to dim. Her eyes opened before the alarm sounded. She stood slowly, her body tense, sensing movement beyond the border walls. Then the explosion came. It wasn't from the alien side or the human side. It was from the cliffs. A third group, unmarked ships, black armor, silent approach, no banners, no warnings. Saboteurs sent by those who feared peace more than war. The camp scrambled. Soldiers, both human and alien, ran for cover, confused and yelling. Some were still wounded from past battles. Others hadn't held weapons in weeks. The peace had made them hopeful. It had also made them vulnerable. She didn't run. She moved straight toward the center of camp, where smoke rose and panic spread. The human soldier found her there, calling her name as flames lit the sky behind him. "You have to get out of here," he shouted. "This isn't a battle, it's an execution." But she shook her head. "If I run, they will follow. If I stand, they must choose." More explosions followed. The unmarked attackers swept through like shadows, but they were not met with full resistance. Humans and aliens alike hesitated. They didn't know who to fight. And that was the saboteur's strength, confusion, until she stepped forward into the crossfire and knelt. This time her bow was not for tradition. It was a message. One of the black armored attackers froze. The human soldier fired at another, covering her with his body. "What are you doing?" he hissed. "They're not going to respect that." She looked up at him. "They don't have to, but someone will." Behind them, one of the alien warriors stepped out of hiding. He recognized her gesture, and he dropped his weapon. Then another, then a human, then two more. One by one, soldiers began stepping forward, standing between her and the saboteurs, not with guns, with presence, with courage. The attackers hesitated. They weren't trained for this. They were trained to break enemies, not silence. The human soldier finally stood beside her again, his voice loud and clear. "You want to burn this peace? You'll have to go through all of us." And then the real fight began. It wasn't long or glorious. It was messy, sharp, quick, but it was united, and the attackers were driven back. When it ended, the camp was damaged but not destroyed, and she still knelt, her robes torn, her eyes steady. The officers arrived the next day from orbit. They had seen everything through satellite feeds. She and the human soldier stood before them as equals now. "You were right," one officer admitted. It wasn't surrender. It was a call. The council issued a new order, not just for her freedom, but for something more. She would now be a representative between species, a bridge. And he would be the first human ambassador assigned to stand beside her. That evening, he found her sitting by the ruins of the old wall. He sat beside her without saying a word. For a long time, they watched the stars rise together. Then, she spoke. "There's one more thing you still don't understand." He turned his head. "What's that?" She looked at him, her voice quiet. "The bow I gave you was never just for peace." He sat in silence, watching her as the stars blinked above the broken world they had helped calm. Her words echoed in his mind. "The bow I gave you was never just for peace." He turned slowly toward her, unsure what to say. "Then, what was it for?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she leaned forward and touched the soil with her fingers. "In my culture, we bow only 3 times in life," she said quietly. "Once to the one who saves us, once to the one who teaches us, and once to the one we choose." His heart skipped. She looked at him, not as a soldier, not as an alien, but as someone who had seen his soul. "I bowed because I chose you, long before you understood what that meant." He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. The silence between them was full, not empty. It carried everything they had endured together. A war, a stand, a moment that changed everything. The next day they stood before the United Council. This time not as prisoner and guard. She wore ceremonial robes, bright with her people's glowing patterns. He wore simple ambassador armor, polished but humble. They were symbols now, but more than that, they were proof. Proof that one moment of mercy could start a movement. She spoke first. "Let this be recorded. I no longer kneel because I seek peace. I kneel because I trust peace to walk beside me." He stepped forward. "And I will walk that path. Not as a hero, but as someone who finally understood what strength really means." From that day forward, the story of the kneeling alien and the human who listened spread across the stars. Peace talks began between species who had never shared more than fire and bullets. New symbols were created, not flags, not weapons, just a gesture. One knee to the ground, eyes steady, hands open. The galaxy called it the first bow, but those who knew the truth called it something else. The choice. Years passed. Their names became more than just ranks in a file. They became legends whispered in halls and homes across planets. Schools taught the story. Leaders studied it. Warriors remembered it when they were about to raise their blades. And still, in quiet places, they walked together. Not as alien and human, not as leader and follower, but as two souls who met in the ashes of war and built something far greater. One evening, on a quiet hill under twin moons, he knelt beside her, not as a symbol, not for politics, just to say without words, "I understand now." She smiled, placing her hand gently over his, and for once neither of them had to say anything more.